Hi, I'm Dwayne Brown. Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, a warning for the Stadium Task Force in San Diego from the man in charge of moving NFL teams.
The legal fight over a close city council race in Chula Vista continues. It all comes down to about a dozen votes. I'm Amitha Sharma. We'll have more on the controversy that is now sparking questions about ballot counting. Also, people could not get enough of a real-life murder mystery covered by a podcast series. How the success of Serial may be changing the game for audio programs.
No mayor and no stoplights. Meet the people who made a home in Slab City. The fight to save what they call the last free place in America. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Hi, good evening. Thanks for joining us. The largest water wholesaler in Southern California is increasing the pressure to save water. The Metropolitan Water District voted today to slash water deliveries by 15%. The district serves 19 million people, including San Diego County. The cutbacks will take effect in July. Board members hope this will force more people to conserve water as California grapples with a fourth year of drought. Governor Brown's unprecedented order to cut water use by 25% statewide is already in effect. The National Weather Service just issued a red flag warning for San Diego County. It starts tomorrow night at 11 and runs until Thursday afternoon. The warning signals critical fire conditions may develop due to strong winds and low relative humidity. Warm weather and dry conditions may also be factors in quickly moving fires. The NFL's point man on team relocation says time may be short for San Diego to come up with a plan to build a new stadium. The Stadium Advisory Group made their case today before an NFL executive. They recommend a new sports arena, or rather venue, in Mission Valley at the current Qualcomm site. Eric Grubman with the NFL will meet with 6 team owners next Wednesday. They're charged with overseeing the NFL's possible return to L.A. They're expected to discuss efforts by San Diego and other cities to retain their franchises.
Mr. Grubman confirmed that this is just the beginning of the process. I think he acknowledged to us that he's never seen leadership from the city like he's seen today. He's never seen momentum that's been generated within this region like we've developed in the last 12 weeks. So that was all very positive. But I think he acknowledged to us as well that we have a long way to go.
Grubman also said it could be risky waiting for a public vote in November 2016. He gave the task force an opportunity to present at next week's meeting. U.S. Justice Department says it will work with Calexico police to monitor and reform the force after claims of corruption. KPBS Fronteras reporter Jean Guerrero brings us the latest.
The Justice Department calls it a collaborative reform process. Normally, the DOJ audits police departments through court orders. In this case, Calexico Police Chief Mike Bostic asked for help.
Generally, when the U.S. Department of Justice comes in, it's because of use of force issue, racial profiling, all of that. I don't have those issues here. I just had a department in dire need of training to become a professional police department.
Bostic says the DOJ will give that training and help with community outreach with the help of a group of police chief consultants from major cities across the country. They're expected to work with the Calexico Police for 3 years. The FBI is still conducting an investigation into claims of criminal conduct by on-duty officers. Calexico PD is also running an internal investigation. So far, Bostic has fired 6 of Calexico's 40 police officers. No charges have been filed yet. Jean Guerrero, KPBS News.
Another cruise ship with sick passengers docked this morning in San Diego. CDC workers say 114 people suffered flu-like symptoms on board the Royal Caribbean's Legend of the Sea. 2 crew members were also ill. Norovirus is suspected to be the cause of the outbreak. This marks the second time a cruise ship carrying sick travelers sailed into San Diego this week. Crew members say they have increased cleaning as well as disinfecting the vessel. They're ready to take a closer look at a new budget. San Diego Mayor Kevin Faulconer officially presented his spending proposal to the City Council today. Nearly all members applauded the budget's restoring of neighborhood services after years of cuts due to tough economic times. A vote on a final budget will take place in June. A Superior Court judge upheld the vote count in last fall's tight race for a seat on the Chula Vista City Council, but Amitha Sharma tells us the court fight is far from over.
At issue are 10 provisional ballots that have addresses that can't be verified. A judge ruled Monday those votes should remain uncounted, but that is unlikely to be the last word. Chula Vista Councilman John McCann holds the disputed post after defeating former Mayor Steve Padilla by 2 votes. Attorney Bob Ottley represented former San Diego Mayor Dick Murphy in the 2004 recount involving former Councilwoman Donna Fry. He joins me now. Bob, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
On what basis did Judge Eddie Sturgeon find it was okay for the registrar not to count those 10 provisional votes that were turned in by Chula Vista voters?
Well, a provisional vote is a ballot that's cast by somebody who's voting not at their polling place. So they've gone to the wrong place to begin with. But we do everything we can to let people vote in California. So they cast a ballot, they put it in an envelope. The envelope's sealed, and then they put the information on the envelope from which the registrar can determine whether or not it should be counted. And only then is the ballot taken out. About 5% of all votes in that race were provisional ballots. 95% of those were counted. But the ones that were at issue were individuals who, on the envelope, when requested to list their current residential address, which would have allowed the registrar to verify that they're still registered where they're supposed to be. They put a P.O. box, they put a non-existent residential address, or they put a business address. So based on that, the registrar assumed they must have left their original address, and now since they're giving an address that cannot be verified as a voting address, which a business cannot be, a P.O. box cannot be, he ruled that those provisional ballots, 10 of them, should not be opened at all.
But the attorney in this case, the challenger, John Moot, who represents the Chula Vista voters, said, look, the signatures on those ballots matched the signatures on file with the registrar. Why doesn't that matter?
Well, maybe it will when it gets to the Court of Appeal, but for this judge, the judge determined that it was a reasonable method undertaken by the registrar to verify that these were eligible voters. He put the question down. He didn't have to put the question down, where are you currently registered to vote? But he did. And when they put in a P.O. box, the registrar assumed that person had moved. But to allow them to vote, they have to have moved to a valid address within Chula Vista. A P.O. box is not. And the judge determined that that was not an abuse of discretion. The key thing here is that when you're challenging an agency like the registrar, you have to find that when they exercise their discretion, it was an abuse of discretion, and you have to find that by clear and convincing evidence, because we don't want to be second-guessing everything our city or elected officials do. So the judge had to defer to his discretion, found that it was reasonable.
But what's the basis? What's the precedent for the judge's ruling?
Well, it's interesting because on the merits of the case, and there were really 2 rulings. Let me take you back one step. The judge initially ruled that because only 15 ballots were challenged and not all 27 that came within this same category, there were 27 total provisional ballots that had this issue. The elector had only challenged 15 of those. So the initial ruling of the judge was that even if I was to rule for you, I'd be counting these votes but not these other 12 that weren't challenged, and that would create an equal protection issue. So number 1, he threw out the challenge on those grounds. But when he got to the merits, he determined, not particularly on any given precedent, he just determined that the method chosen by this registrar to verify provisional ballots was reasonable. If we were in Orange County, the Orange County Register would have counted those ballots. But we're not in Orange County. We're in Chula Vista. We have this registrar, and the courts have to defer to the public agency. In this case, determined that it was a reasonable basis for verifying that these people were registered voters.
But how fair is this ruling to voters who clearly intended to vote for one candidate or the other?
Well, it's not an issue of whether they clearly intended to vote for one candidate or the other. The question is whether they clearly were entitled to vote. And that's the whole purpose of this, because if we don't have strict rules relating to who gets to vote, then we're going to have people voting that shouldn't vote for any one of a number of reasons. And so I think this is very fair because you have to have accountability in the system, and you have to have a system that guarantees that it's an accurate vote. And I think the registrar probably was reasonable in doing what he did.
Very quickly now, the attorney, John Moot, plans to appeal this ruling. What are his chances?
Well, I talked to John yesterday. He said he would be filing an appeal. The appeal would in all likelihood be expedited, so this matter could be resolved in a matter of a few months. I think it's going to be really tough, and I think the tougher argument is the initial ruling made by the judge, which is you didn't challenge all of the people similarly situated. And I think that decision was made before Mr. Moot got involved, but it's too late to add those now.
We've got to wrap it there. Bob Ottley, thanks so much for coming on the program.
Thank you.
A bill to protect people living in the country illegally from scam artists won bipartisan support in the state assembly. It prohibits attorneys and consultants from charging for immigration services until President Obama's executive order becomes legal. The bill now moves to the state Senate. Slab City is like the Wild West. It's remote and located in the brutal Imperial Valley Desert. Some call it the last free place in America. KPBS reporter Angela Carone tells us how Slab City's free spirit is being challenged.
It takes a while to get to the last free place in America. 140 miles east of San Diego, farmland turns to dusty towns, which turn to parched desert land. This guard post tells us we're close. This whole place used to be a military base. They left concrete slabs, giving RVs a place to park and inspiring the city's name. Soon you start to see Slab City's makeshift homes. Some come here to escape society. Some are destitute.
You'll see when we pull the ropes up.
And every year, this motley community does the unlikeliest thing. They throw a prom. They say they do it because so many of them didn't go to their own prom.
It doesn't matter how you got here. We're just very happy that you came.
Earlier that day, Bill Ammon is setting up for the big night.
Well, it's all trial and error. But
He goes by Builder Bill. His wife has been gathering dresses from thrift stores for people to borrow. 16 years ago, Builder Bill was working construction in San Diego. Jobs dried up. Soon he was living out of his van. He calls Slab City the end of the rope.
you can retreat and you can retreat and you can retreat, and then there's just one last little knot on the end of the rope. That's Slab City. There might be some Baileys left over there, though.
But he says Slab City is also freedom. Freedom from rent or loans, freedom from zoning laws, and freedom from harassment.
Slab City, you can just sit down and occupy a spot on the planet without any debt, indebtedness, persecution.
Of course, freedom has a price. There's no electricity here, no water, no sewer system. It may be free, but it's also free from garbage pickup.
It's just a piece of useless, unwanted, unusable desert. And that's why we've been allowed to be here all these years.
The state of California owns this land. No one really knows how much it would cost to clean up the place. There may also be munitions and military waste buried out here. The federal government is looking into that now. The state is open to selling the land, and for the first time, Slab City residents are applying to buy it.
I got to thinking, well, if the state's getting ready to unhorse this land, we all depend on this place. And so I took a pretty big alarm and said, hey, we got to do something. You know, I get to sling the mud.
Builder Bill helped form a community group. Slab resident Lynn Bright put together the application to buy the land. She says they need to preserve Slab City from outside development.
If we do nothing and don't organize, then who's the head that's going to pop up and say, hey, wait a minute, not here? Who's going to do that? Nobody.
It's not clear who would want to buy and develop this land, but the mere threat of a sale has shifted the thinking out here. By organizing to save Slab City, some are worried they'll lose the thing that has made it a refuge for so many, the freedom.
I always stay at the top here just to make sure I have my bearings.
Gary Brown came to Slab City 7 years ago. He took a sabbatical from the IT industry. When he tried to re-enter in 2008 at age 56, it was tough.
Who wants to hire an old, ugly old man when you can get a kid from Mumbai for $25?
Brown devised a way to live in the desert year-round. He built an insulated room inside his RV where he can control the temperature. He calls it the Cool Cube.
And this cool tropical breeze just washes all over my body, and it becomes a Zen-like experience.
Brown is adamantly against Slab residents organizing to purchase the land. He says that would bring the one thing Slabbers fear most, a landlord.
If this place has to submit to building codes, the slabs goes away.
Brown wants the slabs to be there for people who hit rock bottom, including those fighting mental illness.
So that the really crazy people can at least fit in and live. And I think that's important. Went a long way to slaying my demons.
But Bright says it's time to take responsibility of the land.
Yep, we're going to have to help in a positive way in terms of cleanup. We're going to have to engage with different levels of government.
She says they have no intention of charging rent. It was her late husband and builder Bill who came up with the tagline, "The last free place in America."
We're going to have to grow up and still maintain somehow the last free place in America.
Later at the Slab City Prom, no one is thinking about land sales. There's a new prom king and queen.
This year's prom king and queen.
It will be months before the state decides whether to sell them this land. This poor community will then have to raise the money to buy it, which leaves the future of Slab City uncertain. But one thing is for certain. At this same time next year, they hope to be here at prom, wearing borrowed dresses, smiling for photos, and dancing under a desert sky. Angela Carone, KPBS News.
A spinoff from the popular public radio program This American Life was a hit. Amitha Sharma explains how the podcast may be changing the game for streaming audio programs.
Podcasts used to be for nerds, but last fall's debut of Serial, which explored the 1999 murder of a Baltimore teen, catapulted podcasts into the mainstream. Serial has become the most downloaded podcast in iTunes history. Its success may prove to be a game changer for journalism and storytelling. KPBS is watching closely and wants to get in on the act. John Decker, Director of Programming at KPBS, is here in the studio with me. John, welcome.
Thanks.
Before we launch into KPBS's plans, let's talk about podcasts. As you know, Serial was a spin-off of This American Life. What made it so wildly popular with listeners?
Well, you know, first of all, because it was really good. There was a confluence of circumstances. I mean, Serial came from This American Life, one of the most popular public radio shows around. It was an incredible story to hear all the way through the months and the episodes that they released. It was an incredible story. And people, I think that mostly it's the audience. People are more and more understanding how they can consume audio when they want to, where they want to. And that's what podcasts really allow people to do. So you've got an audience that really wanted it, a terrific show with great content. And then, of course, there's smartphones and people able to do that. So it just, a lot of things came together, and it was magic. It was magic seeing.
Now, some public radio heavyweights have left to work on podcasts. Does the type of storytelling that you find on podcasts, which are long form and casual in tone, pose a threat to public radio?
No, not at all. If anything, that's the sort of interview style and that's sort of the genre that public radio has owned for years. If anything, what it does is it allows us to sort of expand the reach and to develop new talent. See, we don't see it as a competition per se. We see it as a way just to expand sort of the public radio way of sharing stories or of public service or, you know, sharing news. It's not really a threat because, let's face it, something like Serial probably wouldn't exist very well on the radio anyway, because of the way that she was telling the story over those episodes. So no, the answer is no, I don't think so. I see it as a way to expand things for us.
So KPBS wants to basically build on this podcast trend and is soliciting ideas from the public. Tell me about the project.
Sure. KPBS Explore is a content curation project that we've had in place now for 3 or 4 years. Primarily over the past 3 or 4 years, we've been focusing on television. We've launched A Growing Passion, Savor San Diego, Animal R&R, Snapshot, a number of really terrific TV shows. And they've come all from ideas, suggestions, proposals sent into our call for ideas. This year, we're going to pivot to podcasts to take advantage of what's happening out there with the interest and the popularity of podcasts. So people have until May 15th. They can go to kpbs.org/explore, read the directions, give us their ideas. At the end of the process, we're going to pick at least 3 that we'll help produce, that we can help get off the ground, and see what happens. I'm really excited about it. I've been very, very, very pleased with the level of content, the level of ideas that come from San Diegans, and that's what this is about. We want to capture the excitement and be able to deliver on our mission, too, as an organization for public service.
So what kind of content are you seeking? What types of stories do you hope that people bring to the table? Wow,
well, that's the exciting thing. I hope they're good, which is not a very good answer to give, I don't think. But what I'm hoping for is, some personal stories. I don't know that we'll get something at the level of Serial, because that was very highly produced and it was a big story. But I'm hoping for personal stories. I'm hoping for people that we've never met before, some diversity of ideas and perspectives that can be brought to the table. We're really looking for people who can engage an audience and tell a story. Beyond that, I'm not going to micromanage what the content is, other than to say it has to be about San Diego. We're really looking for something to tell more of the San Diego stories in a very meaningful sort of way. And, we have a lot more directions and information on the website, too, so people can always go there and just read them, and they can drop me a line if they've got questions, too.
Now, the majority of podcast listeners tend to be under 30. Do you have an idea of what kind of target audience you're looking for?
Yeah, we're looking for those people who are most likely to consume podcasts. I would also say that there's a lot of, if you will, older people who consume podcasts as well. I mean, the older generation are more and more getting in tune with how they can consume the content they want. Here at KPBS, as you know, we've been podcasting for over 10 years, and our audience is finding ways to consume that. We are going to find people who want to consume this content, whether they're old or young, but what they really want is good, high-quality storytelling, smart people, and, really engaging content, and they're going to find it through KPBS.
We're going to close it there. John Decker, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you, Amita.
I'm Gwen Eichel. On the next news hour, the power of gravity turning drinking water into electricity in Portland, Oregon. That's Tuesday on the PBS NewsHour.
San Diego held a special event to thank its large group of community volunteers. This is National Volunteer Recognition Week, and hundreds of folks turned out to celebrate today in Balboa Park. Like the many vibrant colors of the civic dance arts performers celebrating this annual gathering at the Oregon Pavilion, the city of San Diego offers a multitude of volunteer opportunities.
In our recreation programs, in our parks, in our libraries.
About 31,000 San Diegans gave freely of their time last year, and this fair is a chance to thank them and get more people under the volunteer tent. Bob Stewart has volunteered with the police department's traffic division for 13 years and says it's been a great experience.
We do hit and runs for vehicles where our detectives try to adjudicate problems that they have with people reporting hit and runs, and we go out, and if they can't find the vehicles, we go out and find them and have them impounded.
We wouldn't be able to do what we do without their help, and it's just incredible the number of hours that they put in helping, and they enjoy it, I think, as much as we enjoy having them around.
The Park and Rec Department has more than 500 volunteers, and Christopher R. is one of several being recognized for going beyond the call. He's racked up more than 2,000 volunteer hours and currently teaches an acting class.
It first started out with the seniors, but it is just cascaded into all age groups.
Christina Frejo's job is to match volunteers with the right opportunities in the city. Whether you have 6 hours a week to spare or 6 hours a month.
I just want to remind everybody to take that moment, if they have any volunteers that help them at their school, wherever they are, to just thank them today.
And if you'd like more on volunteer opportunities within the city of San Diego, all you have to do is go to their website at sandiego.gov/volunteer program. Of course, you can see more of our stories on Balboa Park, the heart of San Diego, celebrating the big 100-year centennial, online at kpbs.org/Balboa Park. Once again, San Diego County will be under a red flag warning beginning tomorrow night. We're looking at a mix of sun and clouds along the beaches over the next few days, with temperatures in the 70s and 80s. Much warmer in the inland valleys, mid to upper 80s over the next couple of days. Plenty of sunshine in the mountains if you're headed that way. Temperatures in the 60s and 70s, much cooler. Back to the hot stuff in the desert with temperatures there in the low to upper 80s. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. You have a great night.